Uh, Welcome. Thank you all for joining us. I'm joined with my partner, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, on this very important issue of the TikTok ban going into effect on Sunday, just 3 days from now. And he and I are partnered to make sure that we keep TikTok alive, that we have more time for TikTok to be able to survive. In less than 3 days, the TikTok ban will take effect with serious consequences for 170 million users, for 7 million businesses in our country that rely upon the platform. And I'm committed to avoiding that fate. And that's why earlier this week, with Senator Booker, along with Senator Wyden, we introduced the Extend the TikTok Deadline Act, and we're joined now by Senator Van Hollen. We're joined by Congressman Ro Khanna over on the House side in order to build the movement, to build the momentum so that we can save TikTok and extend the deadline by which ByteDance must sell TikTok and give them an additional 270 days so that we can work it out. And so today, Senator Booker, Senator Van Hollen, and I have sent a letter to President Biden urging him to trigger a provision in the statute to extend the TikTok deadline by 90 days. TikTok has become an integral part of our lives, and that's 170 million Americans. That's over half of our population. It's 65% of all adults in the United States are on TikTok. And to put that in perspective, that TikTok user base exceeds the Super Bowl's viewing audience by 50%. That's how many people use TikTok in our country. A ban on TikTok would have devastating repercussions for those users. Many depend on the app for their livelihood, and many struggle to afford basic needs like rent, groceries, or medical care. And for others, TikTok provides vital community support and creates a space to share their stories, especially during the emergencies like the Los Angeles fires. Its loss would leave many isolated. Right now, many in that community are building new communities. They're actually keeping their businesses open using TikTok. And we should not be cutting off that vital tool in Los Angeles right now and in other parts of the country. So from my perspective, and let me be clear, TikTok has its problems. Like every social media platform, TikTok poses a serious risk to the privacy and the mental health of our young people. In fact, TikTok paid a fine for violating my law, the Child Online Privacy Protection Act. And just a few years ago, and last year, I sent a letter to the Department of Justice urging it to quickly review the allegations that TikTok had violated my law once again. And I'm going to continue to keep TikTok accountable for what they do to teenagers and children in our country. But what they're doing is no different than what Facebook is doing, what Instagram is doing, what all the American social media companies are doing. They're in no different situation. There's a great mental health, teenage and children's private crisis in our country, and the Surgeon General is pointing the finger at social media, but they're not pointing it just at TikTok. They're pointing it at everybody. So that doesn't solve that problem. We need a whole separate solution to that, and that was my bill that got killed 4 weeks ago on the Senate floor in the last week. That's taken on big interest in our country. A TikTok ban would impose serious consequences on millions of Americans who depend upon the app for social connections and their economic livelihood. And that's why yesterday I requested that the Senate pass the Extend the TikTok Deadline Act by unanimous consent. Unfortunately, two of my Republican colleagues objected. Using hyperbolic language, they argued that ByteDance uses TikTok to indoctrinate young Americans with anti-American and pro-Chinese ideas. Proponents of the TikTok ban often argue that the platform is, quote, brainwashing Americans. But when I pointed out that a senior intelligence official had filed a declaration before the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, acknowledging that the intelligence community had, quote, no information that ByteDance had manipulated content on TikTok to support China, my colleagues didn't even know what I was talking about. So here it is. This is an under oath declaration by in the intelligence community of the United States that they have no information that ByteDance has manipulated the content. None. So we have time. We have an ability to be able to work on this issue. There is no reason why TikTok has to go dark in 3 days. So it's telling that they're not even aware of this admission by the intelligence community, that information compromise has not happened. And it's also further evidence that the rushed process that was used in Congress, where there was no specific vote in the Senate on this issue. There were no hearings in the Senate on this issue. There was no debate on this issue in the Senate. There was no expert testimony in the Senate on this issue. It was a rush to judgment without having heard all of the facts. And that's all that we're asking for. We're asking for more time. We're asking for an ability to be able to try rationally to resolve this issue so that TikTok does not go dark. So that's the issue, that's the place where we're at right now. We have a chance to do something about it. Senator Booker and I are asking President Biden to exercise his authority in order to extend the deadline by 90 days. We're willing to work with President-elect Trump and try to extend that deadline as well. This should be bipartisan. This should not be an issue which we are debating. And even as we're debating, TikTok users are flocking to a Chinese app with no reported presence in the United States. That's what's happening in our country right now. So it's time to take a breath, try to step back, buy some time, try to figure this out rationally, but in no way should we have TikTok go dark on Sunday. It would be catastrophic for just so many small businesses, so many creators, so many communities that have been created with no alternative available to them. So that's where we are. That's what our challenges be, that is going to continue to be, and that's the movement that we're going to continue to build. So let me turn and recognize my great colleague, my friend, great leader, Cory Booker from New Jersey. Welcome.
Thank you, my friend. I want to thank Senator Markey for his leadership on this issue and, frankly, so many issues. I've been very lucky in my time in the Senate to partner with him on many important things. Let me reiterate what he said. There's a real problem with social media in our society, in our culture, in our nation that we need to address. And I think there should be more leadership talking about how to stop its harms to Americans, particularly young Americans. I have real concerns with TikTok, whether it's proliferation of hate and anti-Semitism or some of the credible concerns that have been put forth about national security issues. That's not what's at issue right now. What's at issue right now is that the solution to this is not to end TikTok right now, but to make sure we're creating space for us to come together and save this platform in a way that comports with the legitimate concerns that have been expressed and preserve a platform that, as Senator Markey has said, is so profoundly important in the lives of so many Americans, from creators to business people, to folks who feel alone and isolated and found through that platform a way to find community and connection. There are tens and tens of millions of users. I myself am one. I'm very frustrated with how Congress has gone about doing this. We did not have a debate in the Senate. We did not have hearings in the Senate. We did not even have a specific vote. It was crammed into what's often called in Congress a must-pass bill that had national security support for places like Ukraine, that had, for me, the humanitarian aid I had been fighting for some time to help with the crisis going on in Sudan. It was, to me, a cynical effort to stick it into a bill that many of us would have to vote for because of the high stakes of the other things going on. We should have done this differently, and now is a time that we can do it differently. We're asking for time for us to debate this, discuss this, and find a solution that preserves the platform and addresses some of the legitimate concerns that have been raised. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah. Any questions? Yes.
Have you reached out to President Trump's team or plan to reach out to his team? They've always
Excuse me?
Have you reached out to President Trump's team or plan to be in touch with President Trump's team on this? They've obviously expressed support for an extension on the ban.
Well, we are sending a letter to President Biden today. He's the incumbent president, and he can exercise that authority right now to use the 90-day extension that's in the statute. And so we hope that President Biden does that. And beyond that, we hope that if President Biden doesn't exercise that authority, that President Trump, after he is sworn in on Monday, that he would exercise that authority to ensure that TikTok stays alive. Because there are right now bidders for purchasing TikTok that are out there. And in the legislation, that could potentially trigger the 90-day extension so that negotiations, discussions could continue. So that's our goal, and we hope that President Biden does it. That's our goal right now. But then we would additionally hope, because obviously President Trump filed a brief before the Supreme Court last week. I went to the Supreme Court hearing on this issue, asking for an extension, asking for more time. So obviously President Trump has a great interest in the issue.
Senator, it's been reported that the TikTok CEO is going to be attending Trump's inauguration. What is your stake on this, and would you be willing, both of you, would you be willing to meet with him to have a conversation on what's going to happen?
Well, I've talked to the CEO of TikTok. I've talked to people on all sides of this issue. Clearly, there needs to be an extension. And my hope is that President Biden and President-elect Trump can, between them, find a way of doing so. But I think it's probably helpful that the CEO of TikTok is going to be in town because he personifies, he puts the human face on what the impact's going to be on 170 million Americans.
Now that Democratic leader Schumer has come out and said that there should be an extension, do you think that more of your colleagues will sign on to this, and can they do it fast enough?
I think the fact that we're seeing growing support legislatively on both sides of the Capitol is really encouraging. We are gaining momentum, which I think gives even more of a chance that President Biden, I think, and his team will look to us as maybe that there's a different way to go. I think that given the extraordinary voice of TikTok users, I want to take I want to give a lot of credit to Senator Markey for his leadership, but he and I know, thank you, TikTok users. Americans are letting their voices be heard, and that is affecting the people that are representing them. I'm happy to see more and more people getting on. So let's continue the momentum. Let's get more Congress people, more senators, more voices lifting up in America, and I'm hoping that's going to help to create the momentum necessary to get the right thing done.
And by the way, Senator Schumer just told me a half an hour ago how much he appreciated my making the effort to have this legislation passed by unanimous consent. So he's clearly behind us all the way, and we're just going to build the momentum. Yes, sir.
Have you spoken with President Biden directly before sending that letter? And do you have any sense of how he may be leaning to enact that 90-day button to extend it into the next administration?
I talked to a very high-ranking White House official at the end of last week. I today, once again, extended my personal communication to the White House, not to the president, but to those who would be central to making a decision as to whether or not there should be an extension. So they're very well aware of what Senator Booker and I are attempting to do.
I just want to say thank you for calling on all the bald members of the audience. I appreciate that. Now you can get some hairy.
Yes, sir.
Senator Booker, you talked about how you discussed that you use TikTok personally. What benefits have you seen from using TikTok for your own purpose?
I've got 9+ million constituents in New Jersey. Hundreds of thousands of them are getting the majority of their information and news about current events from that platform. So I want to meet the voters where they are, whether it's going to a barber shop, yes, I go to one, or whether it's going to town halls, but this is a virtual town hall. I've been doing TikToks the last couple days specifically about this issue, and you all know the functions. It's incredible to do a stitch and be able to respond directly to somebody's comments. Not only am I responding to a constituent, but I'm actually also opening up that conversation and that dialogue for many more people to benefit from. Modern elected leaders need to learn to use platforms that are speaking to the people where they are. And this, as the senator, and again, one of my friends and mentors has shown, is that this is a platform where many Americans are consuming their news. To take that away from them when it's not necessary, when we can find a solution to this, is just unacceptable.
Yeah, and again, many people think this is just cat videos for kids. No.
Hey, there's nothing against cat
There's
videos.
not, we have nothing against cat
Okay,
videos.
let's
We
say that.
love cat videos.
Yes, yes.
But it's also community, it's creators, it's small businesses, it's democracy, it's people talking to each other. And again, it's 65% of all adults in the country. So let's just remember what we're talking about right now. And we have time to give a little bit of a reprieve so that we can have this conversation about the national security issues, about the potential purchase by other entities in our society. But it just makes no sense, and it's why on Inauguration Day, if this happens, oh my goodness, it'll be a battle for which story gets most attention above the fold. Inauguration of the president or TikTok banned in the United States. It'll be a battle, but both will be on the front page
Could
on
you
Monday.
ask when somebody over 35? There's 2 of them or 3 of them here.
And yes, back here.
So, 2 questions. Do you think
He's not over 35.
very kind? Do you think TikTok meets the legal threshold to get an extension right under the law? They have to have a binding agreement to sell. And realistically, can this get done in 90 days? I mean, given the algorithm, given China, can there be a sale in 90 days?
Yeah, well, there's been an offer on the table from Frank McCourt and others for a week. But there needs to be some time in order to negotiate with him or with others, right? But obviously, I don't think there was ever an anticipation of a bill passing and being signed in April of 2024 and having the entire appeals process go right up to 3 days before the inauguration of another president and the deadline for TikTok going dark. So the bottom line here is we still don't have a decision from the Supreme Court on the constitutionality of what the Congress and the president did last April. We don't have an answer to the constitutionality. And by the way, TikTok has a right to go to the courts to get a determination as to whether or not it's constitutional.
Senator, it's hard for you to go to your right, but maybe you should.
So that's why the extension really makes a lot of sense, because the courts haven't even yet determined its constitutionality, and as a result, they haven't left enough time to consummate a purchase if necessary. Yes, sir.
To the right.
Thank you,
Appropriately, he's in red,
Thank
too.
you, Senator Booker. In light of the looming ban, we've seen a lot of users this week go to some other apps, including Chinese-owned apps
Right.
like RedNote. Is that a concern? Does there need to be a more comprehensive approach from Congress for combating some of these foreign-owned apps and copycats of TikTok if they pop up?
Right, and as you make your red note question, we're so glad that you've worn your red sweater in order to, be part of that theme that that you're channeling in the question. That's why we need a timeout. We need hearings. We need experts. We need to know what we're talking about. The Senate never considered this issue. It was jammed into the Ukraine-Israel humanitarian relief bill with no discussion on our side. It's just a part of the problem with the legislative process that we have right here. But in a case like this, it just has incredible negative consequences. And this migration towards red note is a very good example of the law of unintended consequences, which the Congress right now doesn't know anything about. There are more people on TikTok that understand it than members of the House and Senate. This migration to red note right now. No one even knows what that word means in the Senate. Okay, to be honest with you, it's sad but true, and that's why we need real experts to come in and to testify. Congressional experts kind of an oxymoron. Like Salt Lake City nightlife or jumbo shrimp. You know what I mean? We need real experts to come in and to tell us what we should be doing on any particular issue. Yeah.
You want to go to your right? Say your right, sir. Do you want to stay?
Oh yeah,
She's was one of the first hands
Yeah,
up.
please.
I feel bad.
So you say that the appeals process has taken some time, but why wait until now to do this? It was passed initially in April. Why didn't, or have you been working on this for months?
Oh, I've been working on this all along. I actually went out on the Senate floor on the day it passed and said, this is a big mistake, putting the TikTok ban in that must-pass legislation. I gave a very extensive speech that day. I was trying to talk to the Senate about how respectful they should be of the consequences of just, without any debate or thought, abolishing the most popular, social media site in the country. And so, yeah, I was on it from day one at 8 a.m., the day of the ban passing in the Senate, and I've been on it every day since.
And I just want to give him a little more credit. He's been working on this for some time, talking to a lot of people. And again, even today, I want to thank the TikTok users. We showed, just by him going on video and talking to it, his videos on TikTok just about this subject have millions of views. I think more and more legislators are seeing that. So one, his leadership has been there from the beginning, but I keep wanting to go back that this is a democracy. Your voice matters, and I want to continue to encourage TikTok users to let your voice be heard by your representatives, by your senators, by the outgoing president, by the incoming president, because I really think this is one of those situations where the power of the people is greater than the people in power, and you are making a difference. Your voice is being heard, and that's why on our bill, we have so many new members jumping onto our bill and creating some momentum. So please don't give up. Please keep pushing for a common sense solution to this.
Right. And as recently as yesterday afternoon, talking to my Senate colleagues, they didn't even know that the intelligence community has filed an affidavit with the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals saying they have no information about the compromise of this information. So, so we need to do a big educational, process here in the Senate, and we just need time out on the field while we study this issue and try to get a reasonable solution. Because again, the creators, the communities that are out there right now are desperate. They're seeing, and many of them, their lives that are just going to be eradicated. 7 million small businesses who use this technology. There's at least 225,000 jobs directly related to TikTok, all gone, because it's going dark. TikTok has made that clear. It's going dark on Sunday. Yes?
What do you make of all of these major tech CEOs that are going to be on the platform on Inauguration Day, some of them even altering some of their practices to, better suit Trump? What do you make of that?
As the author of the big three pieces of legislation in the 1990s that created the digital revolution, obviously, on the one hand, I'm proud that we have moved the whole country from analog to digital. When my final bill passed, I was the lead Democrat in February of 1996 when President Clinton signed it. Not one home in America had broadband. Not one home. So the goal was to move America from broadband, narrowband to broadband, from dial-up to broadband, from analog to digital. And we've been successful. In the first generation, Google, eBay, Amazon, Hulu, YouTube, I'm very proud of that. But there's a successor group of companies, including TikTok and others, that are now filling the space. That was the goal. But there is a Dickensian side to this revolution, which I said back in 1996. It's the best of technologies and the worst of technologies simultaneously. It can enable, it can ennoble, it can degrade, it can debase. It can do it all. The big companies, they tout all the great stuff they do, enabling, ennobling. And they try to hide the degrading, the debasing. They try to hide it. So as they're up there on the platform, the companies that are the principal beneficiaries of those three bills that I'm very proud of, believe me, I know how important it is that I have introduced my AI Civil Rights Act, endorsed by every single civil rights group in the United States, okay, as part and parcel of this AI revolution that they're all talking about. So as I see them up there, I know that we need an AI Civil Rights Act. In the same way I know we need a teenage privacy Bill of Rights. In the same way I know that we need to keep, as the 1996 Act did, my law did, that $80 billion has been spent making sure that computers on poor kids' desks in schools and inner cities all across the country have access to these technologies. So I see them up there, and I'm afraid that they want. I'm afraid they want to walk away from their responsibilities. Okay, from their job to make sure that we deal with the sinister side of cyberspace. And so that's, for me, almost a gift that they're going to put themselves up there because that will allow us to talk about all the other things that we should be asking from them. I'm sorry, Corey.
But first of all, you could have kept going. You could have gone from
Yeah, I got it.
Flintstones to the Jetsons.
I've got.
I mean, you had a lot of things there, from
I'm
disco
sorry,
to Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
You could have gone. You got to get your rap there going
Yeah,
a little bit better.
yeah.
We got one last question.
Yeah, that was, by the way, when only birds tweeted.
Yeah, that's
When that
good.
bill
That's a
passed,
good one.
that was
That's a good
nothing.
one.
That's
We're
how
here all
long
week,
ago.
by the
That's
way.
how
Yes,
long ago
yeah.
it was. Yeah. Okay, good.
And
I'm
you know
sorry.
what? I just want to say, like, when I went to write my book, I was blown away that you have one of the greatest records when it comes to this space, going back not years, but a couple decades.
Thank you.
More than that, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Last question. It's got to be really
good.
good. I mean, this is a moment.
Answer the inauguration question, though?
What's that?
Can you answer the question about the text?
No, he's the center of this show. Come on. Go ahead.
Yeah, good.
Have any of your Republican colleagues come out in support of your bill, and will you continue to push for legislative solutions if TikTok does go dark?
Yes, 48 of our Republican colleagues have signed on to. Oh, I'm sorry. Weren't we talking about misinformation? No. We have not gotten one Republican co-signer at this point. As he said, he called for unanimous consent vote, and Republicans were the ones that, not Democrats, but Republicans were the ones that came forward. However, I am very hopeful, because of what Donald Trump has been saying, that you are going to see a switch with a lot of Republicans who will perhaps be influenced by the president's own views and the president's strongly expressed opinions on the matter. So there is a bipartisan way forward. We're hearing the incoming president, and we're hearing a lot of Democrats joining the leadership of Senator Markey. And I didn't mean to be I did not mean to be flip with you. The truth of the matter is, I have larger concerns. I have nothing to do with the subject about the way money is flowing into the inauguration committees. This is not simply to Donald Trump. We have a real problem with the way money is raised in politics, the way money corrupts politics, and the way that we raise money for an inauguration, which is so many corporate interests are giving a lot of money. I don't think that's healthy and good for our democracy, but that's really not germane to this issue. But we have a problem in America with too much money in politics. And again, I've been reading about this guy to my left talking about this issue. I'm a few months younger than him, but he's been talking about this issue for quite some time.
So, just to finish up and to follow up, the goal of those laws were to break up all the monopolies. So that's what my bills did. Broke up the cable monopoly, broke up the local telephone monopoly, broke up the wireless monopolies. I broke them all up so that we could unleash a new generation of techies that could move into the space and reinvent the way in which we communicate here and around the world. And the principal beneficiaries of those laws are now going to be sitting up at President Trump's inaugural. And unfortunately, for too many of them, they're channeling the very same instincts that those monopolies that we broke up in the 1990s had, to control the market, to not listen to the public, to not, in fact, be responsive to the totality of all of the values which we have in our society. So, again, Senator Booker is just such a great leader. We're going to continue on this. It is essential that TikTok be alive at midnight on Sunday night, and we're going to continue to work to build the movement to make that possible, because we need time. Time will solve this problem, but without time, unfortunately, for millions of Americans, they're going to lose TikTok on Sunday, and we're going to work to make
Can
sure
we do
that
something that's
doesn't
never
happen.
been done?
Yeah,
Just,
let's do it.
We just finished a press conference with all those people. How did it go?
It went great. We have the attention of the brilliant Washington Press Corps, and this message is going to continue to be spread across the country. TikTok must not go dark on Sunday.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Thank you all so much. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it. Thank you. We don't have to get consent to use their